The Underground Railroad, signs and symbols. Signs and symbols are all around us. What will we do without them? Street signs help drivers know the rules of the road, when to stop, when to let other drivers go first, and what hazards or dangers may be ahead that they have to watch out for. Native Americans use signs and symbols to share stories about their past and their culture. Here are some pictures from national parks in Santa Barbara, California, and a rock which is called Newspaper Rock in Utah. We don't understand what all these signs and symbols meant. Look carefully at the pictures from Santa Barbara. These drawings on cave walls and rocks are called petroglyphs, or rock writings. Do you see something that looks like a compass? Maybe it told the Native Americans what direction to go to find another village or a good hunting spot. Look at the drawings from Newspaper Rock in Utah. Do you see people? How about animals? Feet? There is a wheel drawing that could also be pointing to something important. Stars, maybe? We really don't know. The African American slaves also used signs and symbols to send messages. Early in the history of the United States, African slaves were brought over to work the plantations in the South. Slaves were considered to be property of the estate. In other words, they had to work very hard in the fields, planting and harvesting crops. They were not allowed to leave the plantation and could be sold to other owners and never see their families again. Before the Civil War, which happened in 1861, the United States was divided between the North and the South. The South wanted slaves to continue working the plantations, while some people in the North thought it was time to end slavery. They were called abolitionists. You can see on the map where the government divided the North from the South with an imaginary line called the Mason-Dixon line. As Marylanders, we were right on the line between the North and the South. For this reason, Maryland was very important in the history of the slaves who escaped to freedom using the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad was not an actual railroad. It was a secret network of people and places used to hide slaves who were escaping from plantations in the South to freedom in the North. The people who helped slaves escape were called conductors, using railroad vocabulary. Conductors on a train usually take the tickets from the passengers and make sure that they get to their destination. The conductors on the Underground Railroad didn't take tickets, but they did make sure that the slaves found their way to the next station, or house, where they could hide until reaching the North. Here's a map of the routes or pathways that they could take to escape.
But no one has been able to find such a document.
You may have heard of Harriet Tubman. She was born into slavery on the plantation in Dorchester County, right here on Maryland's eastern shore. She is also known as the Moses of her people because she became one of the most famous conductors on the Underground Railroad. Before 1863, when President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed all slaves, it was against the law to help slaves escape. If runaway slaves were caught, they could be sold back into slavery in the South, beaten and severely punished. For this reason, the routes that the slaves took to escape were secrets that had to be hidden. This is the reason for calling it underground. The slaves used secret codes and symbols to communicate these escape routes to others and find the conductors, like Harriet Tubman, who would lead them to freedom. The song, Follow the Drinking Cord, is an example of these secret codes. Historians do not really know what the secret map is referred to in the song. They think that the map was the Mississippi through Tennessee and Kentucky to Canada. A gourd is a squash-like vegetable. Pumpkins are a kind of gourd. Slaves used dried and hollowed-out gourds to hold drinking water while they were working in the fields. The song is telling the slaves to use the stars to find their way. Remember the petroglyphs the Native Americans carved into the walls? Stars can be used to navigate or give directions. The slaves called the Big Dipper constellation the drinking gourd. The Big Dipper always points to the North Star. If slaves followed the Big Dipper walking at night, they would be heading north. The song also talks about a peg foot. Historians think this is talking about another conductor on the Underground Railroad who was called Peg Leg Joe. He worked for plantation owners as a carpenter. He had one leg. His other leg was a wooden leg. Conductors could leave carvings or drawings on trees, which could be used to tell which way to go. The slaves were told that the riverbank makes a very good road. They were to follow the rivers such as Tennessee and Ohio rivers, which could continue to lead them north. Another part of the song might be telling them that the time of year to travel, when the sun comes back and the first quail calls. This would have meant springtime, when the weather would be better. Other songs were also used to send secret messages to slaves wanting to escape to freedom in the North. They were visual symbols the slaves used as well. Some historians think that the quilt patterns were used. For example, there is a North Star pattern which may have symbolized the drinking gourd. Like the Native Americans' drawings on caves, we really don't know what all these symbols meant. The Underground Railroad was a closely guarded and well-kept secret. What we know comes from people who survived to tell their stories, like Harriet Tubman. If you want to know more about Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad, check out this website from the Library of Congress.